Hey guys, today I'll be going over some Solidity basics, um, specifically transactions versus calls, and some properties on the blocks, such as these. So, for example, here I have a sample contract, which I'll show you how I got. But you'll see that there's three main function methods. There's a send coin, just get balance in ether, and get balance. Um, and you'll notice how like there's two parameters here, the address of the receiver and the amounts. But then there seems to be this serious third variable, which is message.sender, which for a lot of people, it kind of makes them confused, so you don't see a message anywhere. But that message.sender is the sender address on the block itself. I'll link some documentation to this link. You'll see message.sender here, but these are basically some variables that are available on the block. Um, Okay, but I'm gonna be following a lot of this tutorial, and I'll be showing you how Truffle shows transactions versus calls. So let's get into it. Interacting your contracts. So knowing transactions versus calls is pretty important in Solidity. Um, the main difference is that transactions cost ether, and they actually make changes on the network. So I guess these 2 points right here. Um, versus calls, like they don't cost anything and they happen immediately. Um, so this costs ether. It changes the state of the network. Like it'll actually change some data. It's not processed immediately because since there's some cost, it requires some work. You have to do like a wait or something, and you have to wait for the value to come back. Um, so yeah, when you call a function in a programming language, you get a return value. But in this case, you don't get the return value that you kind of asked for. You get transaction ID instead. Um, calls over here, yeah, are free. They don't cost any gas. They don't change the state of the network. So it's pretty much a write versus a read. The process immediately. So instead of what return a return value, it does get return a return value. Um, and yeah, both of them are necessary. Um, Sometimes you'll need to read some data, and you might want to read a bunch of data before you decide to actually pay ether or gas for anything. Um, But then if you actually want to affect the blockchain, you'll have to do a transaction. Okay, so this is introducing abstractions of our contracts. So Truffle will abstract the contracts. I'll show you an example of that. Here's the MetaCoin contract I just showed you, like this one over here, and you get it by following my other tutorials. Do I do a Truffle unbox? So there's a project called MetaCoin, and doing Truffle unbox will run the front end stuff, which is probably Node or npm or whatnot, and it'll also clone the project for you. So do that all in one step. Okay, so this contract, as I mentioned before, has three methods. There's a send coin, get balance to ether, and get balance. Pretty much this contract has a map of balances, which will map like different addresses to the amount they have. The send coin is the most complicated one, but pretty much it'll keep track of, lets you send um, ether from one account to another. It does a quick check. Oh, if the account that you're sending from has enough Ethernet, then allow it to send ether. But if not, just return false. So these two steps just transfer ether from one account to the other, and it will emit an event, which is this transfer event over here, and return true. Um, this will get the balance in ether of a certain address. So since this is a map, just put in the address, you get the balance, and it'll use this convert lib convert method to convert it to ether, and this will just give you the um, direct value. They can weigh or whatnot. So that's pretty much what it does. So I did let's see, make this a little bigger. So Truffle unbox Metacoin is how I got all this. So it gave me this project with these contracts, migrations, tests. So it's a tutorial project for Truffle, so I won't go over it too deeply. So I'm gonna do a Truffle develop to start my blockchain session or my local Ethereum network, which will give me these 10 accounts. And I'll do compile to compile the code. It will compile the contracts in this contract folder, which is this convert lib, um, Metacoin, and migrations. Yeah, it's compiled, and then I'll do a migrate. to migrate them to the network, which does these two migration scripts. Okay, so that's the basic setup that you need. I'll wait until this finishes. But yeah, so I'm going to be copying the code directly because it's a little easier. But this will show you how our contract has been abstracted if I do this deployed method. So, okay, I migrated it. So now I'm going to do let instance and then see what the instance looks like. So this is going to be our abstract over contract. It's quite long. It starts here. So it's quite long. But yeah, this is what our meta coin contract is abstracted to. It'll show you that it has the same methods as our contract has. So it has the get balance in ether, and send coin. I'll scroll down and I'll probably be able to find it. Yeah, methods. There's this method section. So send coin, get balance in ether, and get balance. They're right there. And they, again, to just give you a visual, matches these three over here. Okay, so we can call them. So making a transaction. So it wants us to actually use the send coin method. So I'll copy this. This will give me the accounts. The accounts are the accounts from our that we set up initially when we did Truffle develop, which is right here. So we did Truffle develop. It started our local Ethereum network at this IP address and gave us these 10 accounts. So now we're using Web3 to get the actual accounts. And now we're going to transfer from one account to another. So see index array 1, index array 0. So it's sending to account 1, 10 like way or gas from account 0. Okay. And I'll go over the output in a second. But I'm going to explain this for a sec. So again, there are two parameters here, receiver and amount. So this account 1 and this 10 makes sense, but this from seems like extra stuff that you don't know how that works. So essentially, Solidity lets you pass in extra variables in this like squiggly bracket notation for its map notation. So from, and this from parameter will map to this value over here. Other possible keys to this map are to gas price, value, data, and nonce. We do the from, and then the from we get to use in this message.sender here. So in the code, you'll see that like it'll look at we're sending from account 0 to account 1. So we're checking if account 0 has enough. If it does, we subtract the amount from account 0 and give it to account 1, and then we actually emit it. So it's doing all that. So yeah, again, if you want to look at more about this message.sender and these block transaction properties, it'll be here. But that's something kind of confusing. And so essentially, whenever you have like the message.sender or anything message.property, whatever, it's just those extra properties on the block. Okay, and then making a call. So yeah, we had a transaction. This actually cost us gas. So we see here that there's gas used over here. It costs about 50,000 gas. There's a transaction ID over here in this TX parameter. There's a receipt and there's some logs. Okay. And then making a call instead of a transaction. So a transaction costs gas while a call doesn't. So we're gonna call the get balance from account 0, and then we're gonna print it. So we initially have 10,000 gas initially given in our test network, and we sent 10 away. So now we have 10,000 minus 10, which is 9,990. And then I'm gonna go back to the transaction stuff that we had before. So we put all the data in a variable, we print the variable. You can see, again, we have this transaction hash, the receipt, and some logs. And then if you want to know more about all this abstraction stuff, there's this README over here with this Truffle contract, and it will go over a lot of it. I'm not going to go over it, but I'll link in the description. But you'll see here that there's a bunch of methods you can call at the very least. Okay, and then caching events. So you have to be able to cache events sometimes, and one way to get more information about your events is to look at the logs. So right here, I told you that this is the log stuff, but there's one thing here that's been kind of truncated. This for args, the argument that we passed in. So I'm just going to do reference that entry directly. So yeah, we put all that stuff in results, and we want to access the log variable. So we do results.log, and then we access the 0 index, which is the first one. And now you can see that instead of this args putting a result here, we have the args result, and we have the 3 parameters. And these parameters, so to go back, in our code, we have this emit line over here on line 24 to transfer. So there's 3 parameters put in here, this from, which is the address, this to, which is the address, and this value. And in here in our log, we see there's the from address, which is account 0, the to address account 1, and then the value. So yeah, it'll tell you the parameters in case you need that. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I want to go over. So I went over some of the transaction properties. I went over an example contract. I let you actually see the output in the Truffle development environment. Just how interactive it. All right, that's about it. Thanks, guys. Bye.